go.
And to them he may take out all the utensils required for his use. He may don all that he can wear, wrap himself, and all that he can wrap himself. And Rabbi Yossi says he may don only 18 articles of apparel. And he may return and don other garments and take them out. And he may say to others, come and save with me. Rabbi Shimon ben Nanya says we may spread a kid's hide over a chest, a box, a closet that has caught fire because it singes. Likewise, we may make a partition with any vessels, whether full or empty, so that the fire will not spread. Rabbi Yossi prohibits making a partition with new earthenware vessels filled with water because they cannot endure the fire and they crack and thereby extinguish the fire. If a Gentile came to extinguish, they may not say to him, extinguish, nor must they say to him, do not extinguish, because his resting is not their responsibility. But if a minor comes to extinguish, they may not allow him to do so because his resting is their responsibility. Okay.
Okay. Zain. Kuf in ka'ara al gabe haner bishvil shelo te'chaz b'korah. Okay, so you've got a candle and it's burning. Okay, and then you look up and you see, it's not too far below the beam over here. So, I'm a little worried about the heat and maybe it's going to catch fire. So
Right.
what you can do is you can strap something, you can strap some kind of a bowl in its some sort of heat protection
Right.
above it in order to prevent it from catching fire. Um, what you cannot do is put the bowl directly over the candle because obviously that's going to extinguish it.
Right.
Okay, so as long as you're putting it in such a way that the candle can continue burning in the normal way until its fuel is exhausted. Okay, but you're allowed to prevent it from catching fire to other things. Okay, but also I shall katan, and also you're allowed to cover up, to take a bowl and cover up something. It sounds like it's the excrement of the child, but the Gemara
Right.
explains actually it means the excrement of chickens. So you've got some chickens in your yard and you don't want the kids to step in it. Okay. Now, normally you'd be allowed to clean up the chicken poop anyway because
Right.
it's disgusting. And that's a heter in Mokhteh is if something is disgusting, graf shel re'i, that's exactly the definition is if you've got something that's disgusting and you want to get it away, you're allowed to do that. There's no Mokhteh. Okay, so what this is talking about is a place where it's not interfering with your life. It's not exactly in your chatzer. Where exactly is it? Um, it's not a it's in a chatzer, but it's not a chatzer that people sit in. But nonetheless, you worry the kids are going to go running around and they're gonna go stepping in the chicken poop.
Right.
So you can cover it up with a bowl. And why would there be a question? Um, I think the question over here is actually um, if what's the answer to do if you have the chicken poop and you don't want
Mm.
anyone and you can't move it, so then you put a bowl on top of it. Okay. Va'al akrav shelo tishach. But here's a bigger chiddush: is if there's a scorpion and you're worried it's going to sting somebody. Okay, you can't kill it, so can you put a bowl over it because that seems like you're being tied as well. So hold on a second. Everyone's going to get up and scream and say, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! You're trapping the scorpion. That's tzad."
Right.
Okay. So again, we're coming onto the heter of the fact that you're not catching the scorpion because you want a scorpion. You're catching the scorpion because you don't want it to sting anybody and you want it out the way.
Oh, no. Right. Right. Right.
So there it would still be an issur drabanan as opposed to a darais. If you're catching something because you want it, that's tzad.
Right.
Okay, but if you're catching it because you want it out the way, okay, so it's an issur derabanan. And now because it's a something that's a sakana, it might not be a deadly sakana, but it's something that is a suffix like that. Therefore, it's mutar lechatchila to trap it. And I would say
Mhm.
probably the same applies to bees in a room where you've got somebody who's allergic to bees. Okay,
Right.
so you'd be allowed to trap the bee. You wouldn't be allowed to kill it, but you'd be allowed to trap it and maybe guide it so that it flies outside.
Mm.
Um, if there's any shaila of actual pikuach nefesh, then kill it.
Right. Right. Okay.
That's so if it's something that's aggressive and is likely to hurt somebody in anything that's even a suffix pikuach nefesh, then you just kill it because you're machmer on pikuach nefesh. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Maaseh ba lifnei Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai ba'arav. So such a case happened where somebody trapped a scorpion in the town called Arav, and Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai heard about this and he said, "Oi, Amar chosheshani mechatas, chosheshani lo mechatas. I'm afraid he may need to bring a chatas for catching that scorpion," which is a big thing to say because he's arguing straight with the Tana
Right.
Mishnah. But he's saying that if he's saying you might have to bring a chatas, he's saying that's a doraisa. All right, okay, so that would be an Issur doraisa according to Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Um, so the halacha actually over here is not like Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. It's if it's Kahati gives the psak halacha that any kind of dangerous creature, snakes and wild rabid dogs, stuff like that, you kill them as soon as you see them. Okay. Any other kind of mazikim, if they're chasing after a person, you are allowed to kill them. If they're not chasing after anyone, you are allowed to put a bowl on top of them so that they shouldn't cause any damage. And if he happens to crush them while this is happening, or while he's walking, of course, there's nothing
Right.
said about it. Okay. Next Mishnah, Nochri she hidlik isaner. So a guy came and lit the candle. Okay, now are you allowed to benefit from the malacha that was done by a non-Jew? Yeah, if he did it for himself, mishtamesh le'or al Israel, because ner le'echad ner le'elef, he lights a candle for himself, anyone else can benefit from it, not a problem. Ve'im bishvil Yisrael asur, if he did it because he knew that the Jews would be happy with him doing it, that's asur, because we have a thing about Amir al-Nochri. Now, our common practice nowadays is like anytime somebody's electricity goes out, we go around looking around for a guy to do something, and we try to give this a very roundabout way. We're sitting in the dark, and there 10 of us for supper, and we can't see what we're doing. It's just giving all these hints over here. And this mission is seemed to saying like it seems to be skirting around the whole question of how you asked him. If the guy just comes and volunteers it and says I'm doing it for the Jews, the Mishnah is saying it's asur, uh,
Right.
which is that's difficult considering our common practice nowadays. But nonetheless, that seems to be our practice is when there's a tzorech, and we don't just like really. I think the musar out of this is that we shouldn't be so flippant about saying, my fridge light is on. I'd better call a guy to come and turn it off for me.
Right.
Okay, you can't be frivolous about it. If you have a serious situation where you've got somebody, like let's say there's an old person in the house and they're struggling with the heat and the air conditioning is off. So like this is serious discomfort for somebody, right? If there's a big tsar or something like that, or if there's tzorich harabim,
Yeah.
if you're having a big suda, like it's sheva brachas or something like that, and everyone's sitting there, it's tzorich harabim. But if it's just like you feel like having a light turned on, you can't be frivolous about asking the guy to come and turn stuff on for you. Okay. Milei mayim lahashkos behemto. So the guy went into the well in the Rosh Hashanah and drew water out. And he comes to and he pours some water into a trough so that his animals can drink. So the Israel comes and sees, oh, there's water left over. Let my animals drink from it as well. 100% fine. Bim bishvil Israel asur. But if he drew the water in the Rosh Hashanah for the Jew, he cannot benefit from that. Asagoy kevesh leregbo. So he was on a ship, and the ship docked before Shabbos came in, but they didn't have a time before Shabbos to come down. And meanwhile, the guy went and built a ramp to allow people to descend. He wanted to get off the ship as well. Yored Acharav Yisrael, not a problem. He let him go after the Bishvel Yisrael again. So if he did the malacha specifically for the Jews, he's not allowed to benefit from it. Maaseh Rabban Gamliel was a Canim. There was a case, and I think it's probably the same case when they were that we had in Trumos or Masros or something like that. Remember when we had Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yeshua
Right.
were all sitting on the boat, and they wanted to make sure that they had given their Trumos and Masros before Shabbos came.
Yeah.
I think this is the same Maaseh where they were in the ship, and a non-Jew came and made the ramp for them to go down. The Yardu bo Rabban Gamliel v'Hazakanim. So everyone use the ramp after the guy to come down.
So,
Yeah. Next parak. Kol ha'kelim nitalin b'Shabbos v'dalto se'en imahin. Okay, so again, we're talking about a situation of muktzah over here, where you've got doors, where you've got like a cabinet and a detachable door, which you could say is like a lid. Let's say you've got, sort of a clothes hamper for your laundry, and it's got a lid that comes on and off. That's the kind of, although I think it attaches and detaches, so it's not like just a plain lid, but it's something that you can, that as part of its use you attach it, detach it, open, close, whatever. It's just part of its normal use. So all of these kalim, says the Mishnah, can be picked up on Shabbos, and so can their doors. And this is distinct, right, as we'll see in the Mishnah now. Afal pi nisparku b'Shabbos, even though the door was taken off on Shabbos, it's not a problem. Why? It's not like the door of a house. Doors of a house, the normal thing is just to move on the hinge, closing and opening. They don't come off. If a door
right,
in your house came off the hinge, you are not allowed to put it back, because that's bone.
right, right.
Okay. But when it's something that where the natural usage of the thing is to attach it and detach it, then there's
Okay.
nothing to worry about there.
Okay.
Right. Back to your base Gimel.
Good base Gimel. One who writes two letters, whether with his right hand or his left, whether one character or two characters, whether with two winks or in any language, he's liable. Rabbi Yoshi says they declared writing two letters liable only because of marking, for thus they would write on the boards of the Mishkan to know which one were mates. Rabbi Yehuda ben Nasi said we find a short name which is part of a long name, Shem for Shemman, and small Noach for Nachor, Dan from Danel, and Gad for Gadel. One who writes two letters in one period of forgetfulness is liable, whether he wrote with ink, with orpiment, with his vermilion, with gum, with ferrous sulfide, or with anything that marks on two walls forming a corner or on two pages of a ledger that can be read together, he is liable. One who writes on his skin is liable, and one who scratches on his skin, Reb Eliah holds him liable for a sin offering, but Reb Yeshua exempts. If someone wrote with liquids, with fruit juices, and road dust, and scribe's dust, or with anything that does not endure, he's exempt. If one wrote with the back of his hand, with his foot, with his mouth, or his elbow, or if one wrote one letter alongside a written letter, if one wrote over another writing, if one intended to write a chet but wrote two zayins, I can't read that zayin, if one wrote one letter on the ground and one letter on a beam, or if one wrote on two walls of the house or on two pages of a ledger that cannot be read together, he is exempt. If one wrote one letter as an abbreviation, Rabbi Yeshua ben Sarah holds him liable, but the comment exempt him.
Okay.
Okay. And
Purim.
okay. Beis Yud Aleph. How is it neither like a undomesticated animal or like a cattle? It is forbidden on account of colliding with both an undomesticated animal and with cattle. If one assigns to his son his undomesticated animals and his cattle, he is not assigned to him as koi. If he said, I am a Nazarite, and this be an undomesticated animal or cattle, he is a Nazarite. In all of the ways, he is like an undomesticated animal and cattle and requires slaughtering like this and like that, and conveys carrion uncleanliness and has a limb of a living being like this and like that. How does one separate the Bakurim? When a man goes down into his field and sees a ripe fig, ripe cluster of grapes, or a ripe pomegranate, he ties reed grass around it and says, let this be Bakurim. Rabbi Shimon says, nevertheless, he designates them again as Bakurim after they are plucked from the soil. And how do they take up the Bakurim? All the cities of Amad gather in the city of the Amad and spend the night in the open place of the city, and they did not enter their houses. And so to the elderly, early rising, the officer said, arise and let us go up to Zion, to the house of the Lord our God. Okay.
Shemos. Gimel Zion.
Gimel Zion. And whence do we know that Bakurim must precede Truma? This is called Truma and Reshit, and that is called Truma and Reshit. Bakurim takes precedence since they are the first fruits of all, and Truma precedes Rishon because it is Reshit, and Rishon precedes Sheni because it contains Reshit. If one intended to say Truma but said Maisa but said Truma Ola and but said Shalomim, And he said, Ola, that I shall not go into this house. And he said, into that one, that I shall not derive benefits from this one. And he said, that one, he has said nothing until his mouth and heart agree. A non-Jew or Kuthian, their truma is truma, and their meisers are meiser, and the hallowed things are holy. Rabbi Yehuda says Karen Ravai does not apply to a non-Jew, but the comments say it applies. And the truma of a non-Jew renders meduma and is liable to the added fifth, but Reb Shimon exempts. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay. And okay, Zion Dalit. If the wife of a chaver left the wife of an amaretz grinding in her house, if the mill stopped, everything in the house is tamei. If the mill did not stop, nothing in the house is tamei except for the items in the area that she can stretch out her hand and touch. If there were two women, then in either case, everything in the house is tamei, since one grinds and one examines. These are the words of Rav Meir. But the come and say nothing in the house is tamei except for those items in the area that they can stretch out their hand and touch. If someone leaves an amaretz in his house to guard it, when he can see those who enter and those who leave, the food, drink, and open earthenware are tamei, but the bed, seats, and sealed earthenware are vessels are tahor. But he cannot see those who enter or those who leave, even if the amaretz guard has to be carried, or even if he is bound. Everything is tamei. If the tax collectors entered into the house, everything in the house is tamei. If there is an idolater with them, they are believed to say, we have not entered, but they are not believed to say, we have entered, but we have not touched. The thieves entered into a house. Nothing in the house is tamei except for those items in the area where the thieves walk. And what do they render tamei? The food, drinks, and open earthenware vessels. But the bed, seats, and sealed earthenware vessels are tahor. And if there is an idolater or woman with them, everything in the house is tamei. Okay. And Menachos. Okay, test Dalit. One may mix together the libation offerings of rams or those of bulls, the libation offerings of lambs with those of lambs, those of an individual with those of the community, and those of today with those of yesterday. But one may not mix together the libation offering of lambs with those of bulls and rams. If he combined the ingredients of each of them separately and then mix them together, they are valid. If before they were combined, they are invalid. The lamb which comes with the Omer offering, although the size of its milk offering is doubled, its libations are not doubled. All the measures which were in the temple were heaped except for that of the Kohen Gadol, which was heaped within. The overflow of the liquid measures is sanctified, but the overflow of the dry measures is not sanctified. Rabbi Akiva says the liquid measures are consecrated before their overflow is sanctified, and the dry measures are not consecrated, therefore their overflow is not sanctified. And Yossi said it is not for this reason. Rather, it is because the liquid is displaced where the solids are not displaced. All communal and individual sacrifices require libation offerings, except for the Bakor offering, the Misa offering, the Pesach offering, the Katas offering, and the Asham offering. However, the Katas offering of Mitzorah and the Asham offering do require libation offerings. Okay. And we have Medorim, we're going to finish, I think, tomorrow. What are we going to do after that?
After Nadarim is Nazir.
I'm sorry?
Talking about Nadarim.
Medorim, I think we're going to finish tomorrow.
Yes,
Or maybe
Nazir.
Nazir, okay. Yud Aleph Vav. If she said, Kohanim these figs and grapes with respect to my tasting them, and he confirmed the nether with regard to figs, he became confirmed in its entirety. If he revoked the nether with regard to figs, it is not revoked until he revokes it with regard to grapes as well. If she said, Kohanim figs with respect to my tasting them with grapes, with respect to my tasting them, these are two Nadarim. If a man said, I know that they're a Nadarim, but I did not know that they could be revoked. He can revoke the nether. But he said, I know that Nadarim could be revoked, but I did not know that this was a nether. The mayor says he cannot revoke it. The sages, however, say he can revoke it. One who is prohibited by a nether to benefit from his father-in-law and he wants to give money to his daughter, he says to her, this money is given to you as a gift, provided that your husband has no rights in it, but that you put it in your mouth. Okay.
It's another 2 days before we start Nazir, by the way.
Right. Okay. Nazir. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry about this morning. I didn't know until last minute.
Sorry about this now.
Okay. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Shem.